Some businesses were so arrogant, they ultimately destroyed themselves. For example, imagine it's the early 2000s and you just got your first phone. Of course, it's Nokia. Everyone has one. These phones are unstoppable. You can drop them into a hydraulic press, spill soda on them, and they'll still work like magic. The battery lasts for days, and when you're bored, you pull out your Nokia and play Snake. At the time, over 50% of all phones in the world had the Nokia logo on them. They were on top of the world, making billions of dollars every year. It felt like nothing could stop them. But that confidence, the thing that made Nokia so big, was exactly what destroyed them. In 2007, something strange happened. Apple released a new phone, the iPhone. It wasn't like anything Nokia was making. It didn't have buttons, and instead of focusing on calls and texts, it was built for the internet, apps, and watching videos. However, Nokia didn't give a fuck. They dismissed it as a niche product and thought it was just a trend that would pass. At the same time, Google launched Android, an open source operating system that allowed companies to make smartphones cheaper and faster. But as the market shifted, people wanted more than just a reliable phone. They wanted apps, internet browsing, and software updates, which Nokia couldn't offer. In 2011, in a desperate attempt to stay relevant, Nokia partnered with Microsoft and adopted Windows Phone as its operating system. However, by then, Apple and Android had already captured most of the market. The Windows Phone platform struggled to attract users, and Nokia's market share kept shrinking. And it doesn't surprise me at all. I had one, and using it was hell. By 2013, Nokia had no choice but to sell its mobile phone business to Microsoft for $7.2 billion, far from what it was worth at its peak. And after many attempts to revive this platform, it was ultimately discontinued in 2017. The phones were indestructible. Unfortunately, the company was not. Nokia would have survived if they would have gone with Android instead of Microsoft. But Nokia isn't the only company this happened to. Throughout history, there have been businesses that seemed untouchable, only to lose everything because of one big mistake. Today, I will show you 8 situations when arrogant businesses destroyed themselves. And at the end, you'll see a simple as pattern of how arrogance ruins things and why you should avoid it in your life. Next is Yahoo, a company that once dominated the internet. They didn't just miss one chance, they missed several game-changing moments. In the early days of the internet, Yahoo was an all-in-one platform, search engine, news portal, email provider, and more. At its peak in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Yahoo was valued at over $100 billion, and it seemed that it would dominate for decades to come. But despite this strong position, Yahoo made a series of business decisions that would eventually lead to its decline. One of the most famous missed opportunities came in 1998, when Yahoo was approached with a chance to buy a small, growing search engine called Google for just $1 million. At the time, Yahoo was confident in its own search technology and didn't see the need for what Google was offering, so they passed on the deal. In 2002, Google had grown rapidly and was beginning to challenge Yahoo's dominance. This time, Google's asking price was $5 billion. Yahoo seriously considered the acquisition, but ultimately decided against it, once again underestimating Google's potential. Today, Google is one of the most valuable brands in the world, worth more than $2 trillion, while Yahoo never recovered from that missed opportunity. But that wasn't Yahoo's only costly mistake. In 2008, Microsoft made an aggressive bid to buy Yahoo for $44.6 billion. Yahoo's leadership rejected the offer, convinced that the company was worth far more. In reality, Yahoo's influence and market share were already slipping, and within a few years, their stock value would drop significantly. Yahoo's business model was basically buy high, sell low, and repeat until broke. By 2017, Yahoo was sold to Verizon for just $4.48 billion, almost a tenth of what Microsoft had offered less than a decade earlier. Yahoo was leading the internet, but the downfall was because they focused more on money rather than their user. Yahoo comes off as one of the worst managed companies in history. They had a shitload of money and acquired hundreds of companies, but failed multiple times to land a jackpot. Google, Facebook, YouTube, eBay, etc., despite being offered to them. It just amazes me how you can lose that many times in a row and not get a single win. But while Yahoo lost its place in the digital world, the next giant was killed in the world of retail. Toys R Us was a brand known for decades and a place where millions of children made lifelong memories. What made Toys R Us special was its warehouse-style stores packed with more toys than you could imagine. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it became a symbol of fun and childhood dreams. The catchy jingle, "I don't wanna grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid," captured that magic perfectly.
I don't wanna grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid.
For decades, it dominated the toy retail market in the US and even expanded globally with stores in countries all over the world. Parents brought their kids to these stores where they could explore lanes filled with action figures, dolls, board games, bikes, and video games. It felt like paradise for children. However, as the world changed, Toys R Us didn't change with it. The first main problem came when online shopping started booming in the early 2000s. People were buying more things from their homes, but Toys R Us didn't take online sales seriously at first. Instead of building their own website, they made a deal with Amazon in 2000 to sell their toys exclusively on Amazon's platform. This decision turned out to be a disaster because after a few years, Amazon started selling toys from other companies too, making Toys R Us just one of many sellers. They lost control of their online presence just as e-commerce was exploding. While that was happening, other competitors like Walmart and Target were moving in on Toys R Us's territory. These big chains sold toys at lower prices and had the advantage of being one-stop shops where customers could buy everything they needed in one place, including toys. Toys R Us tried to fight back by focusing on their in-store experience, but the damage was already being done. What's worse, in 2005, Toys R Us was bought by private equity firms in a leveraged buyout. This meant the company took on a huge amount of debt, about $5 billion. While the toy chain was still making money, so much of it had to go toward paying off that debt that they couldn't invest in upgrading their stores, improving their online shopping experience, or marketing. They were stuck in a financial trap. Then came 2008 and the global financial crisis. People were spending less money, and Toys R Us, already weakened, felt the hit. Even though they held on for a few more years, they couldn't keep up with the rapid growth of e-commerce led by companies like Amazon or the discount pricing power of Walmart and Target. Toys R Us stores, which once felt magical, started looking outdated and empty compared to the convenience of online shopping. I feel that the decline is due to kids these days simply not going to the toy store. When I was younger, that was the thing. You go to Toys R Us to see all the exclusive stuff they had. We used to get the catalogs in the mall, and I'd make my Christmas list from that. It's crazy how things change. By 2017, the company couldn't handle its debt anymore and filed for bankruptcy. Despite attempts to make a comeback, it was too late. In 2018, Toys R Us closed all of its US stores, and while it still exists in a few countries, the brand has never recovered its former glory. In 2024, Toys R Us announced a comeback, but at an amateur level, and will likely never return to what it once was. However, sticking to the past isn't just a sign for toy stores. Over in the world of photography, Kodak made the same mistake. They revolutionized photography by making it accessible to everyone. Before Kodak, photography was complicated and expensive, but this invention of the simple user-friendly camera and roll film allowed everyday people to take pictures. Their slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest," perfectly captured this idea. By the 20th century, Kodak dominated the photography industry. They not only sold cameras, but also made money from film, printing paper, and developing services. Kodak had a massive presence at events like family vacations, birthdays, and holidays. Basically, if you had a camera, you were likely using Kodak film. At its peak, Kodak controlled about 90% of the US market for photographic film. The company was so successful that the phrase Kodak moment became a way to describe a perfect picture-worthy scene. But despite their dominance, the seeds of Kodak's downfall were being planted even as they succeeded. In 1975, Kodak actually invented the first digital camera, a device that would change the world of photography forever. But here's where things went wrong. Kodak didn't fully embrace this new digital technology. The reason? They feared it would eat into their incredibly profitable film business. The leadership thought if people switched to digital photography, they wouldn't need Kodak film anymore, and that would hurt their bottom line. So instead of being the leader in the digital revolution, Kodak held back, trying to protect their old business model. Meanwhile, other companies like Sony and Canon moved fast ahead with digital cameras. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, digital cameras became mainstream, and the demand for film dropped rapidly. People no longer needed to buy and develop rolls of film. They could take as many photos as they wanted digitally and print them at home or share them online. Kodak tried to catch up by launching their own digital cameras, printers, and even online photo services, but they were too late. On top of that, Kodak had another problem. They had become too slow and inflexible to innovate quickly. The company had been so successful for so long that it had developed a culture of playing it safe. They relied heavily on their film business even as it was dying, and they didn't invest enough in digital innovation. This inability to adapt to the digital era became their biggest weakness. By the early 2000s, Kodak was losing billions of dollars. The rise of smartphones with built-in cameras only made things worse. People no longer needed digital cameras at all, and Kodak had no answer to the shift. By 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy, a shocking downfall for a company that had been so dominant for over a century. I was sad to see Kodak go. My first digital camera was a Kodak in 2006. I bought it because I knew and trusted the Kodak name. If you don't cannibalize yourself, someone else will. Steve Jobs. When everyone else thought iPhone would make iPod obsolete. Today, Kodak still exists, but it's only a fraction of what it used to be. They now focus on niche markets like printing and packaging technology, but they've never regained the business dominance they once had. However, Kodak wasn't alone in missing the signs that something needed to change. Sears was once one of the largest and most beloved retailers in the United States, bringing the modern shopping experience right to people's doors. It was revolutionary at the time. Families, especially those in rural areas, could order everything from clothes to tools, even houses, from the Sears catalog and have it delivered to their homes. Sears helped democratize shopping, making it accessible to people who couldn't easily reach large cities. By the mid-20th century, Sears was a retail giant. They didn't just sell products, they became part of American culture. As people moved to the suburbs in the 1950s and 60s, Sears began opening massive department stores in shopping malls across the country. They sold everything: appliances, furniture, clothes, tools, even insurance and financial services. Their own in-house brands, like Kenmore Appliances and Craftsman Tools, became trusted household names. They were innovators, introducing the credit card in the form of the Sears Discover card and expanding into financial services like real estate and even an investment firm. However, despite its long-term success, issues in Sears' business model began to show in the late 20th century. As new competitors like Walmart, Target, and Home Depot entered the scene, they started chipping away at Sears' market share. Walmart, in particular, was known for its low prices and efficient supply chain, which allowed them to undercut traditional department stores like Sears. Sears struggled to keep up, especially in rural and suburban areas where Walmart was gaining popularity. The biggest challenge came with the rise of e-commerce, led by Amazon. Like many traditional retailers, Sears was slow to recognize just how disruptive online shopping would be. While other companies invested in digital infrastructure, Sears was still focusing on its physical stores, many of which had become outdated and in need of a facelift. They failed to provide the kind of well-timed online shopping experience that customers were now expecting. In 2005, Sears merged with Kmart, a struggling discount chain, under the leadership of hedge fund manager Eddie Lampert. The idea was that by joining forces, the two brands could turn things around. But instead of reinvesting in the stores, improving customer experience, or developing a stronger online presence, Lampert focused on cost-cutting and selling off valuable assets like real estate and Sears' iconic brands. Craftsman was sold to Stanley Black & Decker, and Kenmore was shopped around but couldn't find a buyer. This asset-stripping strategy may have kept the company alive for a little bit longer, but it did little to fix its core problems. Meanwhile, Sears stores continued to get worse. While competitors modernized their shopping experiences, Sears stores looked tired and uninviting. Their reputation for customer service also declined. As more people shifted to shopping online, Sears didn't offer a compelling alternative, and even loyal customers drifted away. The final nail in the coffin came as retail competition escalated, and Sears' efforts to stay relevant were too little, too late. The problem is always going to be management. They don't listen to consumers and think that their set way is the right way. Good leaders are open to new ideas and change. Sears and Kmart refused to change, so they sank and only exist online. Sears is great because it's the emptiest parking lot area of the mall. In 2018, after years of falling sales and heavy debt, Sears filed for bankruptcy. The company, once a retail empire with hundreds of stores across the US, was reduced to just a handful of locations. Although they tried to restructure, they never regained the trust of customers or the financial stability they once had. However, in entertainment, Blockbuster also had its own chance to adapt to a changing world. But just like Sears, they were stuck in the past, refusing to see that streaming was the future. Blockbuster used to be the place to rent movies and video games. At its peak, Blockbuster had over 9,000 stores worldwide, and families would drive to them on weekends looking for the perfect movie to watch. It wasn't just about renting movies. It was a fun way to spend your time. People would browse the aisles, talk to staff about the latest releases, and debate over which movie to pick for family movie night. Blockbuster built its success on advantage. Before they came along, movie rentals were usually done at small local shops that had limited selections. Blockbuster changed that by offering a wide variety of titles in every genre. They even had a unique system that let customers keep a movie for a few days instead instead of returning it the next day, which was the norm at most local stores. This competitive edge helped Blockbuster grow fast, and by the 1990s, they were a dominant force in the video rental industry. However, while Blockbuster enjoyed massive success, it missed several crucial opportunities to adapt to the changing world of entertainment. The first warning sign came with the rise of Netflix in the early 2000s. When Netflix launched in 1997, it wasn't the streaming giant we know today. It was a DVD by mail rental service. People could order DVDs online and have them shipped directly to their homes. This eliminated the need to go to a store at all, and Blockbuster didn't see it as much of a threat at first. In fact, in 2000, Netflix approached Blockbuster with an offer to sell the company for $50 million. But Blockbuster famously turned them down, thinking their business model was strong enough to keep them ahead. That decision would haunt them later. As Netflix continued to grow, it evolved. In 2007, Netflix introduced streaming, allowing people to instantly watch movies and TV shows online. Blockbuster, meanwhile, was still focused on its physical stores and late fees, which had become a major source of frustration for customers. By the time Blockbuster tried to launch its own DVD by mail service and later a streaming option, it was too late. Netflix had already captured the market. Blockbuster's decline wasn't just about Netflix. Another key factor was Redbox, which allowed customers to rent DVDs from kiosks for as little as $1 a night. These kiosks were located in convenient places like grocery stores and gas stations, making them an easy and affordable option for casual movie watchers. With Redbox undercutting Blockbuster's prices and Netflix offering the convenience of streaming, Blockbuster was squeezed from both sides. But beyond competition, Blockbuster's downfall was also a result of poor management decisions and a failure to evolve with customer preferences. They relied too heavily on their physical stores and failed to embrace the digital shift that was reshaping the entire entertainment industry. Instead of innovating, Blockbuster tried to keep its old business model alive by relying on late fees and store rentals, which pushed more customers away. In 2010, Blockbuster was on life support. They filed for bankruptcy, and over the next few years, the company closed most of its stores. By 2013, most Blockbuster locations had shut down, and the brand became a relic of the past. Gotta admit, going to Blockbuster on a Friday night was one of the best feelings of being a kid. I rented a movie right before my local Blockbuster closed, and we never had a chance to give it back, so I ended up keeping it. It was Aloha Scooby-Doo, Lamau. The story of Blockbuster laughing at buying Netflix for just $50 million needs to be made into a Netflix movie. Today, there is only one Blockbuster store left in Bend, Oregon, serving as a nostalgic reminder of the days when movie night meant a trip to the video store. But Blockbuster wasn't the only one outpaced by digital evolution. Before Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, there was MySpace. In the early 2000s, MySpace wasn't just a social media platform. It was the social media platform. It became the first major site where people could connect with friends, share photos, and express themselves online. For millions of users, MySpace was their first introduction to social networking, and it completely changed the way people interacted on the internet. At its core, MySpace was all about personalization and creativity. MySpace was particularly popular with musicians who used the platform to share their music and build fan bases. In fact, it became a launching pad for artists like Arctic Monkeys and Lily Allen. As a fun fact, I can tell you that the iCarly website in the show was heavily inspired by MySpace and YouTube. Like MySpace, the site was designed as a hub where users could interact, engage, and feel part of an online community. By 2006, MySpace had more than 100 million users and was the largest social networking site in the world. It seemed unstoppable. That same year, News Corporation, owned by media mogul Rupert Murdoch, bought MySpace for $580 million. Many thought it was the future of online communities, and for a while, it was, but the success didn't last long. One of the biggest reasons for MySpace's downfall was Facebook. Launched in 2004, Facebook initially targeted college students, but gradually opened up to the general public. Unlike MySpace, Facebook was clean, organized, and focused on simplicity. While MySpace was heavily customizable, Facebook offered a more user-friendly experience. As Facebook grew, MySpace began to lose users. One of the major differences was that Facebook allowed people to connect with real-life friends using their real names, which created a more authentic social experience. MySpace, on the other hand, was more about online personas and less about real-world connections. Many users started migrating to Facebook for its cleaner interface, stronger privacy settings, and faster performance. But MySpace didn't just lose because of competition. It also stumbled with internal mistakes. After being acquired by News Corporation, the company tried to maximize profits by focusing heavily on advertising. This led to the site becoming cluttered with ads, which made the user experience worse. Meanwhile, Facebook was focused on building its platform, improving its features, and growing its user base organically. MySpace, on the other hand, seemed more interested in squeezing revenue out of its existing audience rather than enhancing its service. In addition, MySpace became increasingly slow and and buggy, frustrating users. The lack of innovation and improvement drove more people away. Facebook was constantly introducing new features, like the newsfeed, while MySpace's updates felt minimal and outdated. By 2008, Facebook overtook MySpace in global users, and the decline accelerated. MySpace tried to reinvent itself several times. In 2010, it repositioned as a social network for entertainment and music, but by then, the damage had been done. Users were leaving massively, and no amount of rebranding could bring them back. In 2011, News Corporation sold MySpace for a fraction of what they had paid for it, just $35 million. Despite various attempts to revive it, MySpace never regained its old fame. Today, it's mostly remembered as a nostalgic piece of internet history, though it still exists as a niche platform for music discovery. I actually miss MySpace. I liked how you could customize your page and decorate it. I like how MySpace didn't activate my phone's mic to spy on my conversations to target ads at me. MySpace's downfall was very quiet, but in the world of high finance, there is no such thing as a quiet fade. Enron's collapse was an explosion, a scandal that rocked Wall Street and left a trail of ruined careers and broken trust in its wake. Enron was once a great example of American corporate success, a company that was known as one of the most innovative in the world. Founded by Kenneth Lay, Enron began as a simple energy company specializing in natural gas and electricity. However, under the leadership of CEO Jeffrey Skilling and CFO Andrew Fastow, Enron transformed itself into an energy trading giant, revolutionizing how energy was bought and sold. By the 1990s, Enron wasn't just an energy company. It had evolved into a massive, complex corporation that traded energy, commodities, and even high-tech communications. They made billions of dollars and were pushing the boundaries of how companies could generate profit. At its peak, Enron was the 7th largest corporation in the United States, with a stock price that made it a darling of Wall Street. The company was valued at over $60 billion and won praise for its innovation. But behind the scenes, things were not as they seemed. Enron's downfall was largely caused by the company's use of accounting tricks to hide its financial problems and make it appear far more profitable than it really was. Enron's leaders formed complex and secret partnerships to move debts off their books. This allowed them to report huge profits to investors while hiding massive losses. The company appeared to be thriving, but in reality, it was on the edge of collapse. At the heart of the scandal was Jeffrey Skilling's mark-to-market accounting method, which allowed Enron to book potential future profits on deals the moment they were signed, even if those deals never generated a dollar. This made the company look much more profitable than it actually was, giving investors and analysts the impression that Enron was a money-making machine. For years, Enron was able to maintain the illusion of success because of its incredibly complex financial structure. Most people, including analysts and regulators, had no idea how deeply Enron was hiding its debts and losses. The company's top executives, including Skilling and CFO Andrew Fastow, were praised as financial wizards, and their aggressive risk-taking style was celebrated as the future of business. Meanwhile, they were offloading debt into hidden shell companies to keep Enron's stock price high and keep investors happy. However, the cracks in Enron's foundation started to show in 2001. That year, some analysts and reporters began questioning how Enron was making its money and whether its profits were real. In October 2001, Enron announced that it had overstated earnings by nearly $600 million over the previous 4 years. This sparked panic in the financial markets, and within weeks, Enron's stock price began to plummet. As more information came to light, it became clear that Enron was on the verge of collapse. In December 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy, marking the largest corporate bankruptcy in US history at the time. The scandal removed thousands of jobs, devastated the retirement accounts of employees, and cost investors billions of dollars. Revenue increased by 150% from 99 to 2000, and somehow that wasn't a red flag to investors or regulators. Had a boss who went to work for Enron. He wanted me to join him, but Enron's policy was that you had to transfer 100% of all retirement into the retirement plan, which was invested in Enron stock. I did not want to do this. I was very uncomfortable about this, so I said no. Then this happened, and a lot of people lost all of their retirement. One of the best decisions I ever made. The collapse of Enron triggered a massive investigation that revealed widespread corruption, fraud, and corporate abuse at the highest levels. Skilling, Fastow, and Kenneth Lay, along with other top executives, were charged with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. Fastow struck a plea deal and cooperated with investigators, while Skilling and Lay went to trial. Skilling was convicted and sentenced to prison, while Lay passed away before sentencing. The Enron scandal led to major reforms in corporate governance and accounting, most notably the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. This law was designed to increase transparency and financial reporting and hold executives accountable for their company's actions. It also aimed to restore public trust in corporate America, which had been shaken to its core by the Enron scandal. Today, Enron's name is recognized with corporate greed and corruption. Its rise and fall serves as just a stark reminder of how unchecked ambition and unethical behavior can bring down even the most powerful companies. In conclusion, these massive failures showed that even the biggest companies can get killed if they lose focus, make bad decisions, or fail to adapt. Whether it's ignoring market changes or letting ego rule, no business is immortal. Honestly, if you ever think you've made a bad decision in your life, remember, Yahoo fumbled Google for $1 million. And if you enjoyed this video, check out another one, the fake gold empire that stole millions and disappeared.